Imagine awakening before sunrise in one of the greatest cities the ancient world had ever known. Smoke rises from thousands of hearths. Priests climb towering pyramids as the first light touches carved stone. Merchants prepare their goods, scribes record the movements of kings, and children laugh beneath the shadow of monuments built to last forever. Yet within only a few generations, many of these magnificent cities would fall silent. Their plazas would empty, their temples would disappear beneath vines, and their stories would become one of history's greatest mysteries. Tonight, we follow the final centuries of the classic Maya, not through myth, but through the remarkable evidence they left behind. Long before European ships crossed the Atlantic, the forests of what is now southern Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador sheltered one of the most sophisticated civilizations on Earth. Here, generations of Maya builders transformed limestone into soaring temples. Astronomers traced the heavens with astonishing precision, and scribes recorded the triumphs of kings in beautifully carved glyphs. Their cities pulsed with commerce, ceremony, and diplomacy, each connected by networks of trade and shared traditions. Yet beneath this remarkable prosperity, subtle tensions had already begun to stir, forces that would slowly reshape the destiny of an entire civilization. To understand the Maya's final centuries, one must first witness the extraordinary world they created. Their cities were not isolated settlements, but vibrant centers of culture, commerce, and political influence. Skilled craftsmen fashioned delicate jewelry from jade. Traders carried prized goods across forests and rivers, and farmers sustained growing populations through ingenious agricultural practices. Sacred rituals intertwined with daily life, reinforcing bonds between rulers, priests, and communities. The rhythm of the city reflected confidence and stability, yet prosperity often carried hidden burdens, for powerful kingdoms rarely remained at peace with ambitious neighbors for long. Maya kingdoms were independent city-states, each ruled by its own royal dynasty. Authority rested not only upon military strength, but also upon sacred responsibility. Kings were expected to maintain harmony between the human world and the divine, overseeing ceremonies believed to sustain cosmic order itself. Alliances were forged through diplomacy and marriage, yet rivalries simmered beneath the surface. Victories brought prestige, tribute, and influence, while defeat could shatter generations of carefully cultivated authority. Every decision made within these palace walls echoed far beyond the city's boundaries. The heavens guided nearly every aspect of Maya civilization. Careful observation of the sun, moon, planets, and stars shaped calendars, ceremonies, agricultural cycles, and royal rituals. Generations of astronomers watched the night sky with extraordinary patience, recording patterns that reflected both scientific discipline and profound spiritual meaning. To the Maya, time moved in repeating cycles rather than a straight line, binding the past, present, and future together. As they searched the heavens for signs of balance, changes were already unfolding below, where earthly ambitions often challenge celestial ideals. Beyond the beauty of towering temples lay a landscape shaped by competition. Powerful cities sought influence over trade routes, fertile farmland, and neighboring allies. Diplomatic missions carried promises of peace, while armies quietly prepared for the possibility of conflict. Victorious rulers celebrated their achievements on towering monuments, preserving triumphs in stone for future generations to admire. Yet each campaign demanded resources, labor, and unwavering loyalty. As rival kingdoms struggled for supremacy, the balance that had sustained the classic Maya for centuries began to grow increasingly fragile, setting the stage for changes that few could yet imagine. Trade was the lifeblood that united the many Maya kingdoms. Goods traveled remarkable distances, linking tropical forests with volcanic highlands and distant coastlines. Precious jade, prized obsidian, marine shells, salt, cacao, and exotic feathers passed through bustling markets where merchants exchanged not only commodities, but also stories, beliefs, and ideas. Prosperity depended upon these intricate networks remaining secure. Yet as rival rulers sought greater influence over valuable trade routes, peaceful exchange increasingly competed with political ambition. What had once bound neighboring cities together would gradually become another source of rivalry, drawing entire kingdoms toward uncertain futures. Beneath every magnificent temple stood the quiet labor of countless farming families. Their harvests nourished cities whose populations reached into the tens of thousands, sustaining nobles, priests, artisans, and warriors alike. Through generations of careful observation, Maya farmers adapted to varied landscapes, creating terraces, raised fields, and water storage systems that transformed challenging environments into productive homelands. Their relationship with the land reflected patience and deep understanding. Yet even the most experienced cultivators depended upon reliable seasons. Subtle changes in rainfall, almost unnoticed at first, would eventually test both the resilience of the countryside and the strength of the great cities it supported. The Maya understood that water was sacred, sustaining both the physical world and the spiritual order they believed governed existence. Seasonal rains had long renewed reservoirs and nourished fields, but nature does not always follow familiar patterns. Gradually, periods of reduced rainfall became more frequent across parts of the Maya lowlands. At first, experienced communities adapted through careful management of precious water supplies. Still, each disappointing season demanded greater effort than the last. Few could know whether these shifts marked temporary hardship or the beginning of environmental pressures that would influence generations to come. Even as new challenges emerged, Maya rulers continued to celebrate power through magnificent construction and carefully recorded history. Every monument proclaimed legitimacy, honoring ancestors, victories, and sacred ceremonies that reinforced royal authority. Skilled scribes preserved names, alliances, and triumphs with remarkable precision, leaving future generations an extraordinary window into their world. Yet these impressive achievements required vast amounts of labor, food, and resources. As kingdoms competed to surpass one another in grandeur, the demands placed upon their people quietly increased. Behind every carved inscription stood thousands whose daily efforts sustained the ambitions of their rulers. From afar, the Maya world still appeared magnificent. Temple summits caught the final light of day, marketplaces echoed with conversation, and sacred fires continued to burn within ancient sanctuaries. Yet beneath this familiar rhythm, trust between rival kingdoms had grown increasingly fragile. Diplomatic marriages no longer guaranteed lasting peace, and old alliances shifted with changing fortunes. The forests carried not only the songs of birds, but also the footsteps of messengers bearing urgent news between ambitious courts. Soon competition would give way to prolonged conflict, and the fate of entire cities would begin to change in ways no ruler could fully control. For generations, rivalry had existed alongside diplomacy, but now the balance began to shift. More cities invested precious labor into walls, defensive earthworks, and military preparations. Kings sought to secure borders, protect trade routes, and demonstrate strength before neighboring rivals sensed weakness. Warfare was not new to the Maya, yet conflicts appeared to grow more frequent and more disruptive during these final centuries of the Classic period. Every campaign demanded food, labor, and loyalty. Even victories came at a cost, slowly draining the resources that had once fueled an age of extraordinary prosperity. The forests still echoed with birdsong, but another sound was becoming increasingly familiar: the march of armies. Battles between Maya kingdoms were often fought for prestige, tribute, and political influence rather than territorial conquest alone. Capturing rival rulers or high-ranking nobles could elevate a king's reputation and reinforce claims of divine favor. Yet repeated warfare gradually disrupted agriculture, weakened alliances, and strained populations already facing growing environmental uncertainty. Entire generations experienced a world where stability seemed increasingly fragile. Farmers became soldiers when called upon, and peaceful roads once traveled by merchants now carried armed escorts. Across the lowlands, the rhythm of everyday life slowly adapted to the constant possibility of conflict. During times of uncertainty, faith became even more central to Maya society. Sacred ceremonies sought harmony between humanity, nature, and the divine forces believed to govern the universe. Priests carefully observed celestial events, performed ancient rituals, and offered prayers for rain, prosperity, and balance. To many, the changing fortunes of kingdoms reflected more than political decisions. They suggested that cosmic order itself required renewal. While rulers strengthened armies, spiritual leaders searched for answers within traditions passed down through countless generations. In every temple, hope lingered beside growing uncertainty, as communities looked toward both heaven and earth for reassurance. Evidence preserved in lake sediments, cave formations, and other natural records suggests that prolonged periods of drought affected parts of the Maya lowlands during the civilization's final centuries. These changing climate patterns did not bring immediate collapse, but they placed increasing pressure upon communities already managing growing populations and political instability. Water became more precious with each disappointing rainy season. Harvests became less predictable, and rulers faced mounting expectations to provide security and abundance. Environmental stress alone cannot explain the transformation of the classic Maya, yet it became one important thread woven into a far more complex historical story. History rarely changes in a single dramatic moment. More often, it shifts gradually, almost unnoticed by those living through it. Some Maya cities continued to flourish, while others experienced declining populations, abandoned monuments, or interrupted dynasties. Families adapted as best they could, seeking opportunity in more stable regions, or remaining loyal to ancestral homes despite mounting hardship. The transformation unfolding across the Maya world was uneven, unfolding differently from one kingdom to the next. As silence slowly settled over certain ceremonial centers, a profound question emerged. Why did some cities endure while others faded into the forest? The transformation of the Maya world did not happen everywhere at once. Archaeological evidence reveals that while some cities continued to build monuments and celebrate royal ceremonies, others gradually ceased carving new inscriptions. Palaces that had once welcomed ambassadors fell quiet, and plazas that echoed with festivals grew increasingly empty. This was not a sudden disappearance of an entire civilization, but a slow reshaping of the landscape. Families made difficult choices, leaving familiar streets in search of greater security elsewhere. One city after another, the political heart of the classic Maya began to lose its steady rhythm. Nature possesses remarkable patience. As populations declined in certain cities, the surrounding forest gradually reclaimed spaces once shaped by human hands. Seeds carried by birds found cracks within limestone walls. Roots expanded year after year, gently separating carefully placed stones. The jungle advanced without haste or malice, simply following its timeless rhythms. To later generations, these hidden cities would seem almost swallowed whole by the earth itself. Yet beneath the growing vegetation remained monuments, inscriptions, and homes, silent witnesses preserving the memory of countless lives that had unfolded beneath these towering trees. Behind the broad patterns recognized by historians stood ordinary people whose stories often remain untold. Farmers, artisans, merchants, and children experienced these changing times not as chapters in history, but as the realities of daily life. Some households likely chose to remain despite growing hardship. Others departed with only what they could carry, seeking communities where harvests were stronger or political conditions more stable. They carried with them traditions, language, beliefs, and knowledge that would continue far beyond the decline of individual cities. The Maya people themselves were not vanishing. They were adapting. The decline of many southern lowland capitals did not signal the end of Maya civilization. Across the northern Yucatan and other regions, important cities continued to thrive, trade flourished, and new centers of influence emerged. Culture evolved rather than disappeared. Architectural styles changed, political alliances shifted, and communities adapted to new realities. This regional diversity reminds us that history rarely follows a single path. The so-called collapse was, in truth, a complex transformation unfolding differently across hundreds of miles. The Maya story continued, carried forward by resilient people who preserved their identity through changing generations. Centuries would pass before explorers, archaeologists, and local communities brought many of these ancient cities back into the world's attention. Yet the stones had never truly forgotten. Every carved inscription, every weathered staircase, and every hidden courtyard preserved fragments of an extraordinary civilization whose achievements still inspire wonder today. The silence surrounding these temples is not one of disappearance, but of endurance. The forests protected their secrets until patient hands uncovered them once more. And as dawn approaches our story once again, another chapter awaits. One that reveals how the Maya legacy survived long after the great classic cities fell quiet. For centuries, many of the great cities of the classic Maya remained concealed beneath an ever-growing blanket of rainforest. They were never truly lost to the descendants of the Maya, who continued living throughout the region and preserved knowledge of these sacred places. But to much of the outside world, the magnificent cities seem to have vanished. As explorers, scholars, and archaeologists gradually documented these ruins, they uncovered evidence not of a mysterious civilization that disappeared overnight, but of one whose history had patiently waited beneath layers of earth, roots, and time. Each newly revealed monument invited fresh questions rather than easy answers. Unlike many ancient civilizations, the Maya left behind an extraordinary written record carved into stone monuments, painted upon ceramics, and preserved within a small number of surviving books. For generations, these intricate glyphs remained unread, their meanings hidden behind elegant symbols. Slowly, through decades of careful scholarship, researchers unlocked the Maya writing system. Kings regained their names. battles recovered their dates. Families emerged from silence. These remarkable inscriptions transformed the ruins from anonymous monuments into places filled once again with recognizable voices, ambitions, triumphs, and deeply human experiences that continue to reshape our understanding of ancient America. The story of the Maya did not end with the decline of the classic cities. Today, millions of Maya people continue to live throughout Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador. Their languages, traditions, ceremonies, and knowledge remain vibrant expressions of an enduring heritage stretching back thousands of years. While ancient kingdoms transformed and political centers shifted, communities adapted across generations without abandoning their cultural identity. This living continuity reminds us that civilizations are not measured only by monuments of stone, but also by the resilience of people who carry memory, language, and tradition into every new century. Modern technology continues to reveal chapters of Maya history that earlier generations could scarcely imagine. Airborne laser mapping has uncovered thousands of previously hidden structures beneath dense forest canopies, revealing vast networks of roads, terraces, reservoirs, and settlements connecting cities across remarkable distances. These discoveries challenge long-held assumptions, demonstrating that the Maya landscape was far more interconnected and densely populated than once believed. Even after centuries of exploration, the rainforest continues to guard countless secrets, reminding us that history is never truly finished. Every new discovery deepens appreciation for the ingenuity and complexity of this extraordinary civilization. The last days of the classic Maya were not marked by a single ending, but by countless individual decisions unfolding across generations. Cities rose, transformed, and in many cases fell quiet, while the people themselves adapted with remarkable resilience. Their achievements in astronomy, mathematics, architecture, engineering, agriculture, and writing continue to inspire admiration throughout the world. The stones that remain are more than ruins. They are enduring conversations between the past and the present. As darkness settles gently over these ancient temples, one final chapter remains, a reflection on the lasting legacy of a civilization that never truly disappeared. When we think of the Maya, it is tempting to imagine only silent ruins swallowed by the jungle. Yet every stone was once surrounded by laughter, conversation, music, and ceremony. Children hurried through these plazas. Merchants negotiated beneath shaded marketplaces. Priests offered incense as the first light reached temple summits. Kings announced victories, while scribes carefully preserved their words for future generations. Though the voices themselves have long since faded, their presence lingers in every carved inscription and every carefully placed stone, reminding us that history is ultimately the story of ordinary lives lived in extraordinary times. The Maya believed that the heavens and the earth existed in constant dialogue. Their astronomers devoted generations to observing celestial cycles, recognizing patterns that guided ceremonies, agriculture, and royal authority. Even today, their achievements continue to astonish historians and scientists alike. Looking upward from these ancient temples, it is easy to imagine the same stars that inspired Maya scholars more than 1,000 years ago. Empires may rise and fall beneath the changing sky, but the stars remain, silently connecting every generation that has paused to wonder about its place within the universe. Every archaeological discovery adds another chapter to a story that is still being written. New technologies continue to uncover forgotten roads, hidden neighborhoods, and monuments concealed beneath dense forests. At the same time, Maya communities preserve living traditions that have endured through remarkable centuries of change. Their languages are still spoken, their ceremonies continue, and their cultural identity remains vibrant. The greatest lesson of the Maya is not simply found in magnificent architecture or sophisticated mathematics. It is found in resilience, the quiet ability of a people to endure, adapt, and remember across generations. The last days of the classic Maya were neither a sudden catastrophe nor the end of an entire people. They were the closing chapters of one remarkable era and the beginning of another. Political systems changed, great capitals emptied, trade routes shifted. Nature reclaimed abandoned plazas with quiet patience. Yet through every transformation, the Maya endured. Their descendants continue to shape the cultural landscape of Central America, carrying forward traditions rooted in one of humanity's most extraordinary civilizations. The forest may have hidden their cities, but it never erased their story. As the sun rises over these ancient stones once more, we are reminded that civilizations are not defined only by how they end, but by what they leave behind. The Maya transformed forests into cities, measured the movements of the heavens, recorded their history in stone, and created a legacy that still captivates the world. Their story is not one of disappearance, but of transformation, endurance, and renewal. Beneath every weathered temple lies the memory of countless lives that shaped history. And perhaps, as the jungle breathes around these silent monuments, the greatest mystery is not why the Maya changed, but how their legacy continues to inspire us across the centuries.